movement and the International African Revolution. I wanted to talk to you today about something that everybody in the communities that we live in and inside the United States in particular is talking about. And there is almost a kind of delirium that's sweeping over the community because of this talk about the coronavirus relief resources that have been promised to African people, and they talk about the possibility, the probability that there would be a check in the mail sometime next week. And of course, what we're looking at is a community that is being starved to death on almost, and even sectors from the colonial population, the white population, the colonizers, have been experiencing the consequences of an actual serious decline in the economic capacity functioning inside the United States. And I just want to say that's been especially true since the having to be confronted with the COVID colonial virus contradiction that's shut down supply lines across the world at one juncture, keeping resources from getting to markets, and resulting in a lot of lost jobs, lost production, and things like that. Well, that's happened subsequent to COVID-19, but I just want to remind everybody that even before this, the economic crisis had made itself manifest, quite manifest in this country and around the world, and that there's a major reconfiguration of the world economy that's going on right now, was going on before COVID-19, something that we have been talking about inside the African People's Socialist Party. And of course, the reason that was happening was not the virus that's being spoken of now that we refer to as the colonial virus, and partially because of how this virus has been weaponized against African people in this country and around the world, and against oppressed peoples in various other places. But the fact is, we have been talking about this crisis, and this crisis is normal, natural. That is to say, crisis itself is normal and natural inside this kind of economy. And this economy that's experiencing this ongoing reconfiguration that's causing some disruption as well, it is an economy that was created from slave labor on stolen land of indigenous peoples, not here just in the United States where I'm currently located, but throughout what is called the Americas. In fact, it's called the Americas because it's named for a white man who was part of a process ultimately that devastated so many of the traditional custodians of this land, that killed off, wiped out. And if you want to talk about pandemic, this is something that peoples of the world are familiar with, essentially as a consequence of having come into contact with white power, with white people, with colonialism. So pandemics, disease, biological weapons, and things like that have been introduced into our lives for a very long time. Now, what is happening is that an economy that in and of itself is sitting in a shaky foundation because it requires the ability to continue to suck the blood of oppressed people. It requires the ability to continue to control different parts of the world, and thereby, in so doing, to determine who is going to live and who is going to die, whether people will eat, what they will eat, if they eat, destroys crops in order to put together crops that is beneficial to the colonial rulers, makes the determination that we don't produce for ourselves, but everything we produce is for this thing that they call a market. That's capitalism. So this is the shaky foundation in order for an economy to sit on. And because the economy has been sitting on this kind of foundation, we've seen wars since the beginning of this monstrosity that's called America, that's called capitalism, that's called Western Europe. It's been a really war-based economy because it required war to take people's land, to take people's bodies, and to keep them locked into poverty and states of despair. And so this crisis has been ongoing, and it makes itself look different. It looks different from time to time. I think there's a term for that that they have when certain kind of a plague or pathogen is able to mutate in order to meet the requirements that is necessary for it to continue to be a bloodsucker, for it continue to be a parasite on the resources of the people. So that's a natural consequence, happens all the time. You see it rolling off and on, et cetera. So now what's happening is this COVID colonial virus impacts the US, impacts the world. And in addition to African people, we see the colonizer also being affected by this disease, not to the extent that we are affected. And we are affected because we live in housing projects, because we live generations on top of each other in the same house and stuff. And partially because of poverty, because we'd rather be with each other, because that's part of our culture is hanging together, et cetera. So those circumstances and the poverty that's imposed on us makes it extremely difficult for us to do what the rulers call social distancing. In fact, we prefer to do what we call socialist distancing, so that we can have a situation where maybe we don't intrude on people's spaces and lives, so that we endanger those spaces and lives, but we are close enough so that we have the ability to be united to carry out our mission to end this oppression that we experience as a people. So this colonial virus has been extraordinarily disruptive. It has contributed to not only the poverty and well, certainly a growing kind of joblessness, and that's in the white community, but of course, African people, those of us who are on the so-called front lines, those of us with these pre-existing conditions, and the pre-existing condition we suffer from is colonialism. That's why we have hypertension, which is the pre-existing condition. That's why we have asthma, which is a pre-existing condition, and all those other kinds of things that makes us most vulnerable to the main parasite, which stems from the basic parasite, which is colonial capitalism. So we've been living with this stuff, and then now white people are affected in great numbers by this too. And the rulers have to be concerned about doing something about this virus, because it has the capacity to affect really important sectors as far as white people are concerned, of the white economy, the white population, and even the ruling class themselves, as we've seen certain important people like Trump and people in his administration, and Giuliani, the thug, also affected by COVID-19. So it becomes a social issue. It becomes a kind of social health question that they are forced to have to deal with. And they deal with it, of course, in a certain way, again, so that this virus is still weaponized by the way they deal with it, because our communities, we see at least twice the amount of infection from COVID-19 than you have in the white communities. And depending on where you are, it's much, much higher than that. So here we're faced with this. We see a situation where all kinds of industries being shut down in this country and shut down around the world as a consequence of it. We've seen movie theaters shut down, restaurants shut down, gyms shut down. We've seen airlines affected by it, because the whole question of how people can come together and be together is something that people have to consider before they say, I'm going to take a flight, before they say, I'm going to go to this hotel, this motel, this movie theater. These are things that this ball game, things like that generate capital and move capital throughout the society. That's been disrupted in part because of the COVID issue. So this is really important question. And the economy has been affected in a very serious way, more than what they say, more than what they are able to say. They have to lie about this in order to keep people hyped and keep people participating in the economy in a certain way, certainly as people who will be buying things, consumers, because some 70% or more of the economic activity inside the United States is based on consumerism, not anything that's manufactured or produced in that fashion, but people buying stuff. And so consumerism is a really important thing for the economy overall. And so they need for people to buy. They need, as the malls are closing, but they need people to be in the malls. They can't be in the malls effectively, and not as much as we would, So we see malls closing. We even see some of the outstanding and notable and iconic brands filing bankruptcy because people are not shopping. And how can they shop? Because if you've got a situation where millions of people are facing with eviction because with the last CARES Act, I think it was called, something like that, that provided some income to people. It also placed a cap, placed the inability of people to be evicted due to COVID. And it gave people money or resources so they can take care of some of those questions. And now that is running out, and it will run out in January, if I'm not mistaken. And so that means the possibility of millions of people being thrown into the streets. And whether they are thrown out for this reason or another, the fact is that people have been extraordinarily damaged economically. That means if in fact people are not going to restaurants, that means restaurant workers can't work. If restaurant workers can't work, they can't pay their bills. They can't buy a car. They can't buy groceries. They can't do other things that reverberates throughout the economy to keep it alive. And so that being the case, you see other things beginning to shut down, even such stuff as farming, because you know everything in this country, including farming, growing food, essentially is done for profit. They don't grow food because people are hungry. We do. We have. We've done that and given an opportunity, we'd do it again. But the system itself, you got these huge agri corporations that have bought up so much of the land here. They use all kinds of chemicals and things like that in genetic manufacturing of entities to change them, modify them, etc. So the farming is not, generally speaking, what it used to be, and especially as they're pushing more and more African people who are farmers off the land, who were farmers off the land, and we only own a tiny percentage of what we used to own. But so even you have with farming, that people are losing their jobs. And people will lose their jobs in part because people can't spend at the grocery store because they've lost their jobs in the restaurant. Or they've lost their jobs doing some other kind of thing, and especially true of African people who are in the front of this situation. So this reverberates throughout the economy. So people can't work. And then you see growing numbers of people. It's become normal now. For many people, there's perhaps a generation that has grown up with it being normal to go into a major city and see that the basic housing development happens under a bridge with people living in tents. That the great economic decline is just something that's of a severe magnitude. So when this Congress comes forward and it says that it has been working tirelessly to forge some kind of a package, some kind of stimulus package. And remember, why do they call it a stimulus package? Because it's not for you. It's to get you, it's to stimulate the economy by getting you to, giving you the ability to go out and buy something. It's not for you to be able to survive or live off it or anything like that. So there's this thing about a stimulus package that's coming. And this stimulus package is to give us, the ordinary people, individuals, $600. And $600 is not reparations. $600 do not even touch on the contradictions that we have to face. $600 will not keep you out of a tent because you can't pay rent in most places in this country for a month for $600. So they're not doing you a favor. But of course, the state of desperation is such in our community that $600, give it to me, bring it on, give me something. And so this is something that has mobilized the sentiments of lots of African people throughout the United States. Some people are ecstatic. Oh, I'm going to get at least $600. And of course, that $600 will disappear so quickly. And so now we have a situation where on Sunday, US President Donald J. Trump intervened in this process openly, publicly. And publicly, what he said is that he don't like this stimulus bill. And critical to his dislike is the fact that it only gives people $600. And he said it should give people $1,000 and a couple $2,000, and for every child $600. And because he said that, people are screaming and saying, well, he waited to the last minute. When I say people, I'm talking about the pundits for the ruling class, these thinking representatives, these media forces, these people who are in the political parties, organizations, and what have you. And there's some of our people who need the $600 upset because Trump is now messing with my ability to get $600. So that's kind of the discussion that's roiling the political scene in this country. And of course, $600 is nothing, but neither is the $1,000 that Trump is talking about worth anything. And I just think it's something that we should really look at to see the significance of this. And so that no matter what our opinions are, no matter how we feel about Trump, no matter how we feel, and Trump is a beast. And I do not say this with any reservation at all. Trump is a pig, but Biden is a pig. And Kamala Harris is a pig. And all of these people who we are dealing with, you can't even get to where they are without being criminals. And that includes the one that you love the most, like Barack Hussein Obama. So there's nothing here about love lost. But I am saying that they're playing games with the lives of the people. In the first place, what you should be really clear about is it's your money. And we should say it's our money and we want it now. But we're not talking about just $600 or the $1,000 that Trump is talking about. The $1,000 that Trump is talking about, of course, is much better for the short term than the $600. That's under any circumstances, that would be the case. But even the $1,000 doesn't touch what we have to do. And I just want to say about this controversy surrounding why Trump did this. They say he waited to the last minute. When I had read reports even before, and even in today's Wall Street Journal, they talk about how Trump had been fighting inside his own cabinet, inside his own administration, that was not enough money. Well, that was being offered. The Democrats had put forth the suggestion of a higher amount of money that would be used in the stimulus, and the Republicans came up with something else, and Trump was fighting inside his own administration. Wall Street Journal reported on this. Is no secret. I had read this some time ago. He was saying that's not enough money. He doesn't say this necessarily because he loves us, but because he's not alone on this question. If he were alone on this question, then you wouldn't have Pelosi from the Democratic Party. You wouldn't have Sanders. You wouldn't have the so-called progressive wing of the Democratic Party saying they agree with Trump on the need for $1,000 as opposed to the amount that's being offered right now with the $600. No, he's not alone. There's a sector of the ruling class that has concluded that they need to have a real serious injection of resources into the economy to keep the economy afloat. They're saying that even with this, I read an article just today. I mean, I think even the Washington Post is reporting on the fact that even with this so-called stimulus, that it's not going to last but a second. And it's going to require revisiting, coming back again, because the economy is in a steady, escalating state of decline. And so this is nothing that they are offering the people, and some sectors of the ruling class recognize that, and they happen to fight against another sector of the ruling class because they want to keep the people in a state of destitution, because they assume in part that this is a way that they can have this huge reserve labor force that keeps the price of labor down, because everybody's so desperate to have a job and desperate to do something that they can pay us nothing, just as they do, generally speaking, with African people. And some of them are hooked on this ideological question because there's this assumption that if the government is responsible for giving money out to the people, then that's some form of socialism. And socialism, of course, is an entirely different social system that Bernie Sanders and some of the others have pretended to be about. They call themselves democratic socialists or something like this. They're not socialists any more than Trump is a socialist. But the fact is, these are our resources. When I say our resources, there is no money that's in the economy that will come into the economy that does not exist as a consequence of the stolen labor and stolen resources of peoples around the world. Trump never had a job. Biden never had a job. most of the people who are in these ruling circles, they don't know what work is. In fact, most white people don't know what work is. When they say work, they mean one thing. When we say work, we are the ones who actually have to dig the dishes and do the most extraordinary and dangerous kind of labor that exists in this country and has existed historically. We do it. Mexicans do it. Mexicans, to get a job, in too many instances, have to cross that damn artificial border that white people put up there after they stole the land and declared the Mexicans aliens, and they have to cross deserts and things like that, risking their lives in order to get a job. That's work. That's work what you and I have to do in our communities, and the kind of stuff that we have to put up with white bosses, with white people in general. On the job, we clean their toilets. We are the ones who take care of their children, unless they can get a Mexican to do it, unless they can get now increasingly people like other people to take on that job. That's what we do. That's work. White people don't know what work is. Not now, not today. They don't know what work is. But the point that I'm making is our labor. We produce all the value, and it's our land, whether here on the mother country that produces the resources that go to create the products and keep the economy afloat in terms of industry, et cetera. We do that. It's our money. When I say it's our money, I don't mean just in form of taxes, although that's a part of the case as well. But it's our money because when we go to work, we don't get paid for what we do. We get paid for sometimes close to the amount of our abilities to do the work. That's how profit comes. That's what it comes to the economy here. The bosses make all kinds of money. It's not through some markup once you get the stuff to the store. They make all kinds of money because they don't pay working people the value of their labor. They pay working people for the ability to do labor, which is to say they give you enough to eat, they give you enough to drink, they give you enough sometimes to pay the rent and things like that. And now we have circumstances where it's hard to even get that. But that's our money. That's the money that circulates inside the economy. So these politicians, these bourgeois, these ruling class forces, including the Bernie Sanders, who pretend that somehow this is resources that's been given to people, like we're on welfare. White people and the economy have lived off the welfare of Black people in Africa for more than 400 years. That's our money. So it's not a case of them giving us anything. So let's say that we've got the Biden, the Congress right now. They talked about $600. That ain't enough. And Trump says $1,000, and that's better. But that ain't. And the basic point that I want to make is that they're playing with our lives. Both sectors of the ruling class. Some call themselves Democrats sometimes, and some call themselves Republicans sometimes. Even that's interchangeable. Even what the policies and positions they will take will not always reflect the party they're supposed to be in, because they all represent a sector of the ruling class. You just have one sector of the ruling class might be lodged in one of these institutions that's a ruling class institution that they call the Republican Party, and another sector lodged in this institution, this ruling class institution that they call the Democratic Party. But both of them about the keeping the system afloat. And so that's why you would have even somebody like Bernie Sanders, who claims to be for socialism, would pretend that it's possible for socialism and capitalism to exist in the same social space, and that is impossible. Revolutions are necessary in order to change the political economy of a particular country, a particular society. The capitalism will not concede to you just because you got a good idea, just because like the Wentworth guy is our money and we want it now. It's the capitalism doesn't concede. Their social system doesn't concede in that fashion. You cannot have them coexisting with each other in the same space. In order for socialism to come about, Bernie knows this, Ocasio knows this, in order for socialism to come about, capitalism has to go. And neither of them will come out in opposition to capitalism as such. They come out for socialism, a socialism that's nothing but a light version, a modified version, a kind of gentler version of capitalism, which is a social system that must necessarily steal the labor power, the resources that come from stolen labor of African and other working people around the world. And they still attach to a social system that is based on profit. The motive of the system is profit. That's why they can't get a handle, never could get a handle on this whole issue of COVID. That's why they were not prepared for COVID and couldn't be prepared for COVID because it's based on profit. because if there was no profit involved in it, they wouldn't do it. And now the question is whether they see it profitable enough to try to do something about the COVID thing because of the danger it creates for the whole economy and also the productive capacity of the society and capitalism itself. So it's possible that they will try to do something now that will deal with it, because they need people to be able to go to those jobs, and sometimes jobs in densely populated situations that would create more value. They need that, and also it's possible because occasionally a boss or a boss's child would come into contact with somebody that's infected with the disease, and they might be prompted to do something then, or because the COVID-19 contradiction impacts so severely on the economy that they feel it necessary to do something. That's the only reason we're having this discussion in the first place, by the way, because they're not, this is our money. And suddenly they discover that they want to give, they want to make a little more than $1 trillion available to people. 900 billion is what they're talking about in terms of this specific package. That's not because they love us or they like us. I mean, they spent more than $900 billion, if I'm not mistaken, is going to the Pentagon. More than $900 billion going to the Pentagon. The Pentagon, the institution to make war against poor and oppressed peoples around the world, the Pentagon is getting more resources from this budget than they are talking about providing for people who have suffered the consequences of the colonial virus and the economic shutdown that's associated with that. So it's not like they are doing us such a big favor. They are trying to rescue the system. They're trying to rescue themselves. And only thing I want to say is that we have to be conscious of what our interests are as a people. Colonialism doesn't work. Capitalism doesn't work. It will never solve a problem for us. And even if it appears to do so in the short term, in the long term, I can guarantee you that it's digging a deeper hole of oppression and exploitation of Africans, of oppressed peoples around the world, and the working peoples of the world. That's what this system is based on. We want the money. We want the resources. We should demand the resources. And you should demand these punkish leaders that's supposed to be representing us. And I'm not just talking about those who occupy spaces in the government, though they should be targeted as well. You should be talking about these characters who run around calling themselves our leaders, who trying to get us out of the situation, who are trying to solve the problems that we've got. What is your program? What is your long-term program? Okay, so we get the Biden or the Democratic Party or the congressional $600. Or we get the $1,000. Are we upset because Trump has stalled it so that we can get $1,000? What is your program beyond that? Because the fact is, this economy will never be the same again. America will never be the same again. It's in a state of serious decline. And like I mentioned earlier, this whole world economy is in a state of reconfiguration. America now has to deal with a strong China that's taking up the spaces that America used to dominate and exploit. It has to deal with a stronger Russia that's taking up some of the spaces that America used to dominate by itself and trying to exploit. It is in a contest with Iran, who is determined to be the influential force in the Middle East, and particularly in the Persian Gulf area. America's never going to be the same again. It's never. You never will be able to have the same kind of resources in this country that has been in the past. So what our people are going to do? We're just going to keep hanging on to the coattails or some other part of a sector of the ruling class, hoping that this boss is going to take care of us or not? Or do we have leaders with the gumption, with the gall, with the capacity, with the foresight, with the vision, with the power, with the courage to take African people, even if we have to do what we have to do to live at this moment, to take us beyond this moment to a place where we can be free and in control of ourselves and our own economy, so that we don't be on our knees having to kiss the feet of some other part of the body of some cracker who is in control of our lives and has inherited control of our children and the future of our people. What are our leaders supposed to do? And I'm not just talking about those who are already locked up in the government. I'm talking about those people who are in our communities and who represent us supposedly as great leaders of our people, providing some kind of a vision for where we have to go. I'm saying that you need to look at what we are doing in the African People's Socialist Party, because we are fighting against colonialism. colonialism is the system. It is a system where alien and hostile foreign force dominates a people, dominates a country, dominates a community of force for the purpose of extracting value, stealing value, controlling it for its own benefit and at the expense of the people who they dominate. That's what colonialism is. Not this silliness about racism, white people don't like us. I don't give a damn if white people like us and you don't either. The only reason you care whether white people like you or not is because if they don't like you, you know they can do something to hurt you. That's why people don't like, they were cared about what Trump liked them or not. That's why they voted for Biden, because they thought that Trump could hurt us. But to the extent that we began to organize on our own and build for our own future, then we are not afraid of any of them because we built our own power. We saw that the Vietnamese were dominated by white people and they were able to rise up and free themselves. We saw just 90 miles from where I'm standing in Cuba, we saw a situation where people organized to fight this white power. And yes, every place around the world, people are still having to fight it, but you got to project a future beyond slavery. You have to be able to project a future beyond being on your knees and bowing down and scraping and butt dancing for some cracker who not only benefits from your labor, but benefits from the humiliation that he is able to impose on you and guarantee that your children will also experience. So we are against that. So we say, join the movement against colonialism, because colonialism is the foundation of the capitalist system that's based on stealing the resources, labor power, the labor of peoples around the world and Black people as well. Be involved in a movement where we take our future for ourselves. And no, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a protracted struggle, but you got to start sometime, someplace. And I'm saying the African People's Socialist Party is the place to start, and the time is now. What we have to do is join with an organization that's building something to deal with healthcare, something like an All African People's Development and Empowerment Project, like APDEP, that's created what called the Black Ankh, so that we can have our own ability to address our emergencies in our communities, whether it's the kind of pandemics or whether it's stuff like that they call natural disasters, floods and earthquakes like they did, like happening in Haiti, where 300,000 Black people died and the so-called Red Cross turned up its nose and took a lot of money and didn't do a damn thing. So we have to build and work with an APDEP, an All African People's Development Power, and the Black Ankh, which is our version of the Red Cross. A Black Ankh that has a telehealth program that's open to all people all around the world. A Black Ankh that has an Ask a Doctor program where you can come on the internet and ask doctors about stuff, especially as it relates to this COVID-19 thing that's hurting us. The Black Ankh that also has an economic development component right there in the community in Huntsville, Alabama. This is what you need to be working with. You need to be joining with a party and a hoodoo movement that makes that kind of thing happen. You need to be joining with a party and a hoodoo movement that has something like a Black Power blueprint that's overturned and in the process, rather, of overturning the conditions that African people suffer in St. Louis right now, where whole North St. Louis, where the majority of African people live, is under assault, constant, perennial assault, where they are taking our land, our properties, and pushing Africans out of the community with the complicity of Negro politicians who are in power, who work for them and don't work for us. Join the African People's Socialist Party, join the movement, the Black Power blueprint that's created institutions, that created cafes and work development programs for comrades, brothers and sisters who are in these prison systems. And when they get out, they can't get a job and they can't have any place to stay. Well, what we're doing with this program is that we are training people for employment. We are training people how to get a job and how to open up their own business in the food industry. And we have created housing for some of those people when they get out of prison so they have a place to stay and they have a place to train. That's the kind of vision that you gotta have. I'm not saying that we got more resources. We don't have $900 billion to throw out like that to say that this is the solution. But what we are saying is this is the direction of the solution. If everybody worked in that direction, we'd get there much sooner. And but you gotta have leadership that has that kind of vision, that kind of program to rescue us. We say that You have to look at the programs of the Black Power Blueprint with the Uhuru Restaurant and Bakery, with the Workforce Development Program. As I mentioned, we're talking about a Black Power Blueprint along with others that we have where we create community gardens because people need to eat. I'm tired of folk talking about these food deserts that we live in, waiting for the white man to bring some kind of supermarket there that has nothing but rot there for us in the first place, if you can get there. And you can't get there, that's why it's called a food desert. So why not institute a capacity to grow our own food, to feed our own people where we are? Just think about it. If one single community in the African world, inside the United States alone, if one single African community had the capacity with food gardens, in the neighborhood community gardens and backyard gardens and things like that, if we start that process, you put Walmart out of business. Because they need us on our knees. They starve us and keep us in this desperate situation where we have to rely on them. But we have gardens. We have gardens right there in Huntsville, Alabama, gardens in Houston, Texas. We've had gardens in St. Petersburg, Florida. And we are developing a garden and a marketplace right now in St. Louis, Missouri. So this is the kind of stuff that we have to do. We got furniture stores in Oakland, California, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to try and take care of ourselves. We have a broad and successful 40-year-old campaign for reparations. It's successful. People trying, we want to get some reparations, hope the white man give us reparations. We're getting reparations right now. We built a campaign for reparations. We've organized white people who claim to have solidarity and support for us. If they support us, if they really love us, then they would then initiate that process of giving some of the money back to us that belongs to us, not like Trump or not like the Congress is claiming to do, when it's our money that they're just recirculating in this way that keeps us locked into them. The resources we are getting in the form of reparations, and there are hundreds and thousands of white people who are attached to this process, is responsible in part for our ability to build economic development programs for our community. That's the kind of leadership we need, not some groveling, butt-kissing, belly-crawling fakes that's out there now. And then we have to have the ability to have leadership that connects us to the entire African world. Here we are living in a place in the United States where the best program that our so-called leaders can come up with is Section 8, or a modified welfare program, something to that effect. When Africa represents something like 12 million square miles of nothing but rich, it's the richest continent on the planet Earth, richer than any continent by far. Yet African people are being starved all around the world, including in Africa. And so here you have a situation where the US and Canada and China and all these other forces going to Africa because it's got all this stuff that they need. And here we are, need all this stuff, need everything. And we are in situations in the United States where we are talking about, please boss, can we get Section 8? Can we get more food stamps? Will you give us $600 or $1,000, et cetera, when everything they got comes from us? So I'm not saying don't take the 6. I'm not saying don't take the 1,000, because like the man said, it's our money and we want it now. But what I am saying is, even as you take this, or if you take this, you've got to be building for the future. You've got to be creating a connection with this programs that I'm talking about. You've got to be able to come to apspuhuru.org, apspuhuru.org, to get in touch with the African People's Socialist Party. You've got to be able to go to something like a Black Power. You've got to be able to go to developmentforafrica.org to get in touch with that program that's coming out of Huntsville, Alabama, where we're creating our own health capacity, health resource and emergency capacity with the Black Ark. Come forward. Don't get locked in this mess that they would have us locked in, so that we, instead of looking out for our own future, put in which white man is going to do better for us, which white organization is going to do better for us, as opposed to us having a plan, a program, and leadership that makes it possible for us to do better for ourselves. APSP Uhuru.